day, everyone. Now we are going to talk about Republic Act number 7610. This Republic Act pertains to special protection against child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination, and for other purposes. Here is an example of the case of RA 7610. An elementary grades public school teacher versus people of the Philippines. The situation. At noontime break, a teacher fall asleep in her classroom. Teacher is just having a short rest. I could say that this teacher is exhausted and she might be so stressful. A few moments before the school bell rang, a boy is rushing, getting inside the classroom, and he accidentally moved an object that causes the teacher to be awake. Not knowingly, the teacher immediately get mad of the boy and push the boy, which causes the head of the boy bump into the wall. And the boy was then fall down and become unconscious for a while. When the child went home, he was so weak, and her mother noticed it. Then the boy informed his parents of what happened in the school. And so they immediately went to the doctor for checkup. And it found out that the boy had a blood clot in his head. Felina contends that she did not deliberately inflict the physical injuries suffered by Michael to maltreat or malign him in a manner that would debase, demean, or degrade his dignity. She characterizes her maltreatment as an act of discipline that she, as a school teacher, could reasonably do towards the development of the child. She insists that her act further came under the doctrine of loco parentis. This would mean that teacher takes the responsibility as parent in school. The question is, did the teacher perform as a loving parent of Michael? The teacher infliction of the physical injuries on Michael was unnecessary, violent, and excessive. The teacher physical maltreatment of Michael was precisely prohibited by no less than the Family Code, which has expressly banned the infliction of corporal punishment by a school administrator, teacher, or individual engaged in child care exercising special parental authority, referring to in loco parentis. And so, the teacher had committed a grave offense, which will result to dismissal from the service. The next case is between Laila G. D. Ocampo versus the Honorable Secretary of Justice. From the school, a 9-year-old Ronald complained of dizziness upon arriving home at about 6 in the evening. Ronald replied that Laila, who was Ronald's teacher, banged his head against that of his classmate Lorendo. Magdalena inspected Ronald's head and saw a woundless contusion. Due to Ronald's continued vomiting, Magdalena brought him to a quack doctor, which is the albularyo. The following morning, Magdalena brought Ronald to the East Avenue Medical Center, where he underwent an X-ray. The attending physician informed Magdalena that Ronald's head had a fracture. Blood oozed out of Ronald's nose before he died. Section 3B, Article 6 of RA 7610 defines child abuse as the maltreatment, whether habitual or not, of the child, which includes physical abuse and cruelty. Lila's alleged banging of the heads of Ronald and Lorendo is clearly an act of cruelty. Next case of RA 7610 between Antonieta Lucido versus People of the Philippines. Let's now start what had happened. The victim, 8 years old, was placed by her parents in the custody of their neighbor, Antonieta. The arrangement was made upon the request of Antonieta that the victim stay with her since she was living alone. During the victim's stay with Antonieta, the child suffered repeated physical abuse in the latter's hands, which included strangulation, beating, pinching, and touching of her sex organ by Antonieta. The victim was also threatened by Antonieta that she would be stabbed if she tells anyone about what was being done to her. Discipline is a loving response that seeks the positive welfare of a child. Antonieta's actions are diametrically opposite. They are abusive, causing not only physical injuries, as evidenced by the physical marks on the different parts of the victim's body, and the weakness of her left knee upon walking, but also emotional trauma on her. The next case of RA 7610 is between George Bungalon versus People of the Philippines. Oops! Bago ka ba sa aking channel? Mag-subscribe ka na! Jason and Roldan threw stones at Mary Ann Rose and burned Cherylyn's hair. George confronted Jason and Roldan and called them names like strangers and animals. He struck Jason at the back with his hand and slapped Jason on the face. The acts of George, it did not establish beyond reasonable doubt that his laying of hands on Jason had been intended to debase the intrinsic worth and dignity of Jason as human being, or that he had thereby intended to humiliate or embarrass Jason. The laying of hands on Jason had been done at the spur of the moment and in anger, indicative of his being then overwhelmed by his fatherly concern for the personal safety of his own minor daughters who had just suffered harm at the hands of Jason and Roldan. With the loss of his self-control, he lacked that specific intent to debase, degrade, or demean the intrinsic worth and dignity of a child as a human being that was so essential in the crime of child abuse. All of those things that George had done to both Jason and Roldan has been qualified as grave offense in the crime of child abuse. What's your idea about this? A teacher doing TikTok saying, pag dumaan yung cute na student mo, tamang pa-cute lang. Then he danced while biting his lips. Just think of it. Who are considered children? Persons below 18 years of age or over 18 but are unable to fully take care of themselves or protect themselves. Here are the different punishable acts. Child abuse, a maltreatment, whether habitual or not, of the child, which includes any of the following: psychological and physical abuse, neglect, cruelty, sexual abuse, and emotional maltreatment. Any act by deeds or words which debases, degrades, or demeans the intrinsic worth and dignity of a child as a human being. Unreasonable deprivation of his basic needs for survival, such as food and shelter, or failure to immediately give medical treatment to an injured child, resulting in serious impairment of his growth and development, or in his permanent incapacity or death. Child trafficking. The following are the elements of child trafficking. Any person who shall engage in trading and dealing with children, including but not limited to the act of buying and selling a child for money and for any other consideration or barter. Another punishable acts: attempt to commit child prostitution. Attempt under Par A Section 5. Any person not relative of a child found alone with the child in a room, cubicle of a house, inn, hotel, motel, and etc. under circumstances which would lead a reasonable person to believe that the child is about to be exploited in prostitution and other sexual abuse. Obscene publications and indecent shows. A child is employed, used, persuaded, induced, or coerced to perform in obscene exhibitions and indecent shows, whether live or in video, or model in obscene publications or pornographic materials, considered as punishable acts when there is use, coercion, forcing, or intimidating a street child or any other child to beg or use begging as a means of living. Acts as conduit or middleman in drug trafficking or pushing or conduct any illegal activities. The remedial procedures. Who may file a complaint? The offended party, the parents or guardians, ascendant or collateral relatives within the third degree of consanguinity, the officer, social worker, or representative of a licensed child-caring institution. The officer or social worker of the DSWD. The barangay chairman, or at least three concerned responsible citizens where the violation occurred. Section 2 of Republic Act Number 7610 as amended by RA 9231. Section 2. Employment of children. Children below 15 years of age shall not be employed except number 1. When a child works directly under the sole responsibility of his or her parents or legal guardian, and where only members of his or her family are employed. Number 2. Where a child's employment or participation in public entertainment or information through cinema, theater, radio, television, or other forms of media is essential. As it is said that the true character of a society is revealed in how it treats its children. By Nelson Mandela. May your knowledge increase. Thank you for watching. I would like to extend a grateful thanks to the different government lawyers who serve as our speaker during the seminar that I have attended and where I got those knowledge about legalities. Thank you so much.